Welcome everybody to the July 14th, 2020 meeting of Henderson County Fiscal Court. Glad you're with us, and for those looking in on Facebook, we're also glad you're with us today. We'll begin as we always do with an invocation, and Reverend Eric Hoy from Henderson First Presbyterian Church is with us. Reverend Hoy, would you lead us in prayer?
Let us pray together. Heavenly Father, we come before you during these unusual and challenging times. And we thank you for the incredible leadership of this fiscal court, how it's offered this leadership during this difficult times in the midst of a worldwide pandemic. Lord, we pray for our leaders. We pray for the judge executive. We pray for all the magistrates. We pray for all the leaders of various agencies. Watch over their lives, protect them, help them hear your voice in every decision they make. Thank you also for the people who work diligently and faithfully in this county for the well-being and protection of this community. Continue to give them hope in the midst of the rising tide of discouragement. And Lord, lastly, we thank you for all the business before this court this morning, and we ask that you take this agenda today and that you bless it for the betterment of your citizens who live and work in this county. For we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend. Can you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the
United States of America
and to
the republic
for
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Would you please call the roll?
Manager Putman.
Here.
Manager Southern.
Here.
Manager Moran.
Here.
Manager Berry. Manager McCollum.
Here.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you have in your packets the minutes of the June 23rd, 2020 Fiscal Court meeting. After a period of review, I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
Second.
Who made the motion, please?
I did, Judge.
Keith Perry made the motion. We'll give it to Magistrate Moran as the second. Any other discussion, questions, corrections, or clarifications? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. First up in your packets is our annual resolution designating the organization that will receive our RDAP funds. These are the TVA funds that are made available to counties with TVA facilities in them for use in economic development. As you recall, we, right at the end of last fiscal year, changed our designee from Kindle to Henderson Economic Development because that organization changed. But now it's time for us for the new fiscal year to do the same thing. We have a resolution indicating that, again, Henderson Economic Development will be the recipient of those funds. Of course, anything they designate to use for that, they'll apply back through fiscal court for our approval and support, and then we'll send that to DLG and the funds will be released. As a reminder, these funds can be used for a wide variety of things. The only restrictions in the statute are we cannot use them for salaries and we cannot use them for consulting fees. Everything else is on the table, assuming we approve it. So Whitney Risley from Henderson Economic Development is with us. And this is a perfunctory thing, but anything you want to add to that, Whitney?
No, I think that's it. And Missy's on the phone too. I don't think her camera's on, but Missy's here with us. And just for background on that, the funds that we received for the previous fiscal year is going towards the product development initiative program that we did with you all in the city and the state of Kentucky for the gas line extension. So we'll be looking to see what similar infrastructure projects that we can do and bring that to you all for review and proposal. Missy, is there anything you'd like to add?
You covered it.
And I'm sorry I didn't see you the first time around there, Missy. I apologize. But the good
Oh,
news
that's
is,
okay. I'm up at the heat lab today, so.
excellent. These funds continue to escalate. The minimum amount Henderson County will receive this year from this fund is $153,000 and change, and it will increase again next year. Good way to do a lot of things with that money. In the case of the current project out at the 425 bypass, we are using it as matching funds or contributing funds to this gas line project. So good example of how this money can be used. Any other questions on this, or Missy or Whitney?
No.
I'm good.
With that, I'll have the clerk read the resolution.
Adoption of a resolution of the Henderson County Fiscal Court designating Henderson County Economic Development Corporation to receive Tennessee Valley Authority TVA funds under the Regional Development Agency Assistance Program. Whereas Henderson County desires to promote and carry out economic development efforts on behalf of the residents of Henderson County, and whereas it is recognized that the Regional Development Agency Assistance Program funds available to the county pursuant to KRS Chapter 96 and 2018 Kentucky General Assembly House Bill 200 Budget Bill impose certain obligations and responsibilities upon the county, and will require: 1, the designation of an Industrial Development Authority, an IDA, established under KRS 154.50-301 to KRS 154.50-346. Number 2, approval of a satisfactory application to be transmitted to DLG for approval. Now therefore be it resolved this 14th day of July 2020 by Henderson County Fiscal Court that the following Industrial Development Authority is designated to receive Regional Development Agency Assistance Program funds. The name of the IDA will be the Henderson County Economic Development Corporation. Contact person Missy Vanderpool, 207 North Elm Street, Henderson, Kentucky, 42420. Their phone number 270-854-9455.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Master McCollum, a second by Master Putman. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, and thank you, Missy and Whitney, for joining us, and good luck in the coming year. Glad we could help that way.
Thank you so much.
Now we're on to our annual resolution approving Henderson County's emergency operations plans that Kenny Garrett submits to the state. We have to update this every year, and I don't know if Kenny is with us yet, but it is again pretty perfunctory every year. Kenny's done a great job, especially in the last few months. There's Mr. Garrett right there. Kenny, any comments you want to make about the updated EOP?
No, sir. There's just a period of review, and we went through that here locally in the office. So with COVID and everything kind of taking up most of our time, I really didn't worry too much about anything major because there wasn't. We did a kind of a all through it last year. So it was really given a once over last year. So I think we're good, and we'll do it again next year. But this is just something we have to do once a year.
Any questions of Mr. Garrett? If not, I'll have the clerk read the resolution.
Whereas KRS 39B.0101, KRS 39B.0303, KRS 39C.0503, and applicable Kentucky administrative regulations requires the development and maintenance of a local emergency operations plan, which sets forth the local government organizational structure, policies, procedures, and guidelines for the management and coordination of all disaster and emergency response in Henderson County and its cities. And whereas KRS 39B.0303, KRS 39B.0602, KRS 39C.0503, applicable Kentucky administrative regulations and planning guidance issued by the Kentucky Division of Emergency Management require the local emergency operations plan be officially approved and adopted by signed resolution of the Henderson County Judge Executive. And whereas the director of the Henderson County Office of Emergency Management has submitted the Henderson County Emergency Operations Plan to the County Judge Executive for official approval and adoption in accordance with the aforementioned laws, administrative regulations, and planning guidance. Now therefore be it resolved by the Henderson County Fiscal Court as follows: by the virtue of all the powers and authorities authorized as vested in them by the Constitution and the laws of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, in accordance with the provisions of KRS 39A to 39F, applicable Kentucky administrative regulations, and the Henderson County Emergency Management Ordinance, do hereby order and direct the following. 1, the Henderson County Emergency Operations Plan is officially approved and adopted in the emergency support function format effective the date of this resolution shown herein. 2, the conveyance of the official approval and adoption of the Henderson County Emergency Operations Plan through this resolution shall remain continuously in effect from the date of this resolution as shown herein, or until superseded by subsequent resolution, proclamation in accordance with KRS 39B.0303, 39B.0602, KRS 39C.0503, applicable Kentucky administrative regulations and planning guidance issued by the Kentucky Division of Emergency Management. A copy of the officially approved and adopted Henderson County Emergency Operations Plan, including this resolution, shall be placed on file for public inspection during regular office hours in the Henderson County Office of Emergency Management.
Move to accept.
Second.
Motion by Master Southern, second by Master McCullum. Any other questions on this? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Next, we have Sheriff Brady with us to talk about a couple situations with personnel that have to do with some omissions that were made when we approved the long list of employees and their pay scales. At our last meeting, they caught a couple mistakes, that just omissions, and I'll let Ed take it from there.
Thank you, Judge. I'm assuming you want to vote on these separately. And I won't use deputies' names unless you ask me to. We have a longtime veteran deputy here who we discovered in the past year was making way less money than 2 other deputies hired in at the same time frame. They were hired in at 2005, so it happened before I became sheriff. We just never noticed it, and this employee never complained about it. But to bring this deputy up to 2 other positions that were hired about the same time that he was, well, we meant to put this on the spreadsheet, somehow did not make the spreadsheet. I'm asking that we give him a $3.84 per hour raise to bring him up to where the other 2 were. He's been low for 15 years, never complained about it. This is a deputy that does our computer work, puts a lot of equipment in our cruisers, has changed engines in cruisers, saved us thousands of dollars over the years, very talented. So we would like, I would like permission to raise him up to the salary he should have been making for the past 15 years.
And to follow up on that, this is not a raise per se. You know, we capped our raises next year, this fiscal year, as you know, 2%. This is more of a long overdue correction. And we discussed it in Finance Committee. Master McCullum or Master Putman, if you want to speak to any of this.
Well, it was included in the summary in the bottom line salaries for the year. It was just an oversight about his listing, I guess, is the simplest way to describe it. Charlie, you got anything to add to it?
Well,
I'm okay with it.
With the committee, I think we all talked about it, and we agreed that he had been not taken care of properly, and we were in favor of this. But I think we have to put it. I'm not trying to do this. It's on the spreadsheet. I think we have to say his name, and I think we have to vote on it.
I'll be glad to say it's Deputy Terry Harmon. This is
motion to accept it then.
And I second it.
And just so you know, Sheriff Brady's budget that he turned into us, that we approved as part of the general fund budget, will not be impacted by this. They took this into consideration when they set their total salaries for deputies. So this will not increase that line item. They just somehow omitted.
We
this.
just made a mistake.
Yeah.
Need to correct it.
Judge, I would like to ask that it be retroactive to July 1st, if that's possible.
I think it can be, yes.
I'll amend my motion to include that.
Okay.
Will,
We
will
have
there
a
be,
amended motion. I'm sorry.
will there be compensating pay for him? Being was our mistake?
I don't think we talked about that. But I do think that it's at least fair to do what we're doing now, even though we, again, dictated 2% raises. I think, and again, he never demanded this.
He's not asking for anything at all,
Yeah.
really.
So I think he's fine with, as we move forward, this correction will be satisfactory to him. Is that right, Sheriff Brady?
Yes, that's correct.
So
Sheriff, if you,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Sheriff, have you looked into this to make sure that this won't create a pension spiking issue?
No, I have not. That call probably should be made to Frank. I can check on that and find out. I think it's only a spiking issue if he retires in the next 3 years. Is that correct, Steve? Or which he doesn't plan on doing? I thought the spiking provisions were that if you did it prior to them retiring within either 3 years or 5 years, then it could be considered spiking.
Correct.
And
I just wanted
he
to,
doesn't
Brenda,
plan-
have you looked into that at all?
Spiking is what indicates spiking, and most times is an increase in pay of a certain amount but does not change a position. So it could likely trigger spiking, but I can't answer exactly to that right now.
It depends on when he decides to retire. Correct. But is this in excess of 10% of his prior salary?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I just wanted to bring the issue up. That doesn't mean to stop it. Just letting you know that it could be an issue.
When Kentucky Retirement reviews this employee's salary for past years, if it reaches a 10% increase and there is not a change in position, they will question it.
And I think if they do, we can explain his expanded duties within the department. As Sheriff Brady explained, he does a lot more.
He does everything for us. It's amazing how he's saved us over the years. And it's been something that's been going on for 15 years.
Any other questions? We have an amended motion. Can we get a second to?
Second. Second.
Amended motion. We have a second by Master Putman. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Judge in court. One other issue is I have one full-time employee that we've approved a 2% raise for that did not receive it because it was an oversight on the sheet that was sent up. It would amount to 50 cents an hour. That gives all of our full-time employees the raise that the court had approved. I can name that employee if we need to.
Everybody hear that?
Yeah, I'm not trying to get into the public or anything, Ed, but I think we do. And
Okay. It's not a problem. Don Ferris, our head of security over at the Judicial Center, somehow he was left off of the raise. He's a full-time employee. It would amount to exactly 50 cents an hour.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I second.
We have a motion by Master McCollum, a second by Master Southard. Again, this is giving somebody the 2% raise. We did approve it. It just got omitted on the list. We're correcting that.
I apologize.
That's all right. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, and thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Judge. Thanks, Court.
You're welcome.
While I got you, Sheriff, our next item is your reports. Anybody have a question about the sheriff's reports? Well, Sheriff.
I move to go ahead. I move to accept.
We have a motion by Master Pubman, a second by Master Ferry, I believe. Any other questions of Sheriff Brady? First reports of the year, Ed. We're starting all over. Here we go. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, and thank you, Sheriff. Mr. Gold, your report, very short, starting all over again.
Yes, Judge. Today we had one check that I gave to Mr. Weeson. That's in the amount of $458.33, and that is a flow through for a supplement to an assistant county attorney's salary. And that also, being that this is the first meeting, is the total for the fiscal year.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Master McCollum, a second by Master Moran. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes. Any member of the court want to vote on the most recent Planning Commission recommendation?
Yeah, after review of the recommendations of 1102 rezoning, I'd recommend that we approve that.
I second.
Yeah.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. You should have gotten in the email last night the final round of transfers from Treasurer Ryder. Most of them are small amounts. But at Master McCollum's request, we listed them all. The major ones involve the jail, which I'm sure you see. The rest are fairly small. The other one was Canoe Creek, scoring up with our support of the continuing work on Canoe Creek. Any questions about those?
Make a motion to approve.
I second it.
Motion by Master McCollum, second by Master Putman. Any questions? This should
No.
wrap up all the outstanding invoices for last fiscal year, and much to Treasurer Ryder's satisfaction. This has been
Thank you, Brent.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Treasurer Ryder, anything else? You have some claims?
Yes, I have claims. From the general fund to Sidewalk Cafe in the amount of $715. This is meals for the May COVID testing site at the college and is to come from the EMA supplies appropriation line. Another from the general fund to Visa in the amount of $570.03. This is miscellaneous expenses, primarily from the judge and the treasurer training appropriation lines and the treasurer's data processing lines, and to come from these appropriation lines respectively. From the jail fund to MCF construction in the amount of $2,610. This is for epoxy floor and is to come from the building repairs and maintenance appropriation line. Also from the jail fund to US Bank, which is the credit card, in the amount of $590.52. This is for miscellaneous monthly expenses, with the majority coming from equipment repairs and maintenance appropriation lines.
Treasurer Ryder, are these claims for the previous fiscal year or this current fiscal?
These were purchases in the previous fiscal year that were encumbered and need to be paid prior to the next court meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
I second it.
Master McCollum with the motion, Master Putman with the second. Any other questions on claims? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. We'll go to the county. Start with, well, I know Brian Bishop is with us. Brian, anything you'd like to interject? Any additions? Any news?
No, sir.
Thank you. Our coroner is with us. Bruce, any information, any news?
We've got the van in use. It's not fully equipped yet, but we've already used it 4 times this past month, and I've given the estimates into the judge for finishing that. Other than that, our call volume's up like 22 calls from last year this time. They're just, especially the last 30 days, it's really some unusually rough stuff at the coroner's office, but we're getting it covered. Thank you.
Thank you. Kenny, any new news from your office on any of the COVID-related issues?
No, sir. I'm other than we're just continuing our ramp up of PPE for future use. So Bruce and I are working on that pretty much on a daily basis, just to make sure that we've got everything we need moving forward. I'm also working on some software, which will be I'll bring everybody up to date on that as I get more information. But it is an emergency management piece of software that will let us tie in all the COVID damage assessments and FEMA related issues. And it's a pretty nice package. I'll have some more information about that here very soon, but it's called Crisis Track. It's being used throughout the nation. It's a very good piece of software. So we'll talk about that later.
Along those lines, Sheriff Brady, anything to add on any COVID-related work or anything that your department's doing?
I just want to congratulate Kenny and Bruce Farmer. They've done a tremendous job for the emergency services section of our government. Our employees, I think our judge and our court has done a great job of adjusting and making things work. We did reopen about a week and a half ago. We were expecting a flood of people to come in, special on vehicle inspections. It started as a trickle. It has slowly grown to a pretty steady stream. I noticed upstairs in Renice's office, they are being slammed. They've caught up some. They've done a great job. Their employees, I think all of our employees have done a good job maintaining good attitude, staying flexible. So, we'll continue to adjust. We'll continue to work together. And I think this county has responded well.
Along those lines, we here at the courthouse marked off the courthouse pretty plainly for places where people might line up. The biggest challenge is Renice's office right now. It's had long lines, but we're encouraging, asking people to wear a mask, asking people to keep social distance. I know Steve's office has been open for a while. He's following those guidelines, asking his visitors to follow those guidelines. Steve, anything you want to add to that conversation?
Judge, I've just been very happy with the way everybody has responded, both our staff members and the public. Everybody seems to be wanting to follow everything and be respectful of everybody around them. So it's been very impressive how well it's happening. Like you said, Renice's office, the county clerk's office, has really been slammed. But everybody in line there, even though it's a long line and it does take a while, everybody seems to have a pretty good attitude about it, and everybody seems to be following social distancing guidelines and trying to make sure everybody stays safe. So kudos to both the public that comes into the building and to Renice's staff for handling that.
The offices, Renice's office, Steve's office, Ed's office, that have a vast majority of the visitors here are all set up with plexiglass screening. Staff members have masks. Thanks to Kenny, we have plenty of masks and many other measures to make sure that everybody stays safe. So we'll continue to do that until instructed otherwise. So, thank you all very much. With that, I'll go to Master McCullum and begin to go to the county.
Okay, everything's good in the 5th, but I've got 4 things I'd like to talk about. Is the jailer on?
I don't believe she is.
Okay, well, she contacted us, the Sallyport doors, they're used all the time, and they were, I think, not repairable. I told her to go ahead and do what she had to do. So I just wanted to make sure that was taken care of. And then I just wondered and I guess if we can put this on for 2 weeks and we'll look at it then. I may forget about it if we don't put it down and put it on the agenda. The next thing is the architect for the boiler and the expansion or the moving of the medical. I just want to know where we stand on that, if the architect's done any work on it, and we got some idea what's going on there. If we could put both those things on for next, the agenda for in 2 weeks.
Charlie, can I ask, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, ask what?
Well, can I ask if maybe the jail committee can meet between now and then and take those questions directly to Jailer Brady, so you can inform us when we meet again.
Okay, I'll try to do that. Is that all right with you, Beth? Do you have a time?
No, we'll work out something.
Okay, just let me know and we'll get it. But I just didn't want to let these things get off my radar screen. The next thing is something that I think, and I don't know, with the COVID situation that we've got now and what's going on with the school systems, and I know they don't know what they're going to do. It just sort of, to me, brings up how important Wi-Fi is for our whole community. And I don't personally know what areas of our county don't have it, but the school students, I think, really need it. And I don't know if we need to talk to the school system and maybe Hempel in the city. I don't know where the dark fiber is going down to Madisonville and going over to Morganfield. If we need to try to do something to encourage somebody to form a corporation or something to tap onto those and spread this stuff out. I don't know, but I think it's something as a community and for our economic development that we need to look at that. I don't know how to do it or who to talk to or what to do, but I think it appears to me that must be important. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Charlie, I thought, I'm sorry.
Master McCollum, we've been working on that since I got the appointment to judge, and we are in the middle of some very encouraging and yet at the moment confidential planning to make a very significant dent in this issue.
Okay.
That's all I can say, and that Henderson County, I've made it very clear in the last 3 years that the fiscal court was in a position to make a significant investment with an appropriate partner who could improve our coverage of the county in a significant way. And that
I
is,
want to make sure we're working on it, and I understand. I appreciate it.
It's a problem everywhere in rural Kentucky, and I think we are very close, and I say close, within the next 6 months of being able to make a significant improvement. So just stay tuned on that.
Okay, I will do that. And my last item is I tried to document that we had a tremendous amount of 5 to 8 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, and most of the creeks did extremely well. The North Fork, I grew up in that area, and that would have been underwater for a couple of 2 or 3 days and probably would have destroyed a bunch of crops. It was down in a day. It was incredible. Out there across from Red Banks in that area. The area out towards my farm on Wilson Station Road, that went down very quickly too. The area that we've left out though is out on Airline Road. And as human beings, we have a tendency, once our problem's taken care of, I also went out at Lakeland. The water came up to some of the close to into the yards of some of the people, but it didn't go in their houses like it used to do. So we've solved a lot of the problems, but the road at Airline was covered, and it didn't go down for about 4 or 5 days. And the ditch out there is extremely large, and it goes into a small ditch. Doesn't work very well when you do that. And I just don't think we need to forget the people out on Airline Road, and just because we've solved the other problems, we don't do anything about it. So my thinking was that you know, how do you widen it? How do you maintain it? And how do you pay for it, which is important. I was wondering if maybe Mr. Gold or one of his staff could maybe in a week or a month come up and tell us what our options would be, what we have to do. I know back in the late 60s, there was a vote in Henderson. There was a vote in Union County. The Union County farmers, I think, were a little smarter than us. They voted to approve it, and they've done a great job in maintaining their ditches. I have property. I'm sorry. Of course, Beth's from Union County, so she probably remembers that and knows what I'm talking about. I've got a farm on the Highland Creek, and I pay about a $24 a year assessment on 55 acres. They do a tremendous job with that creek, and it is just, I mean, there's areas there. I ditched along my property line with my neighbors. The neighbors were not able to farm that ground until I put that ditch in, and I couldn't put it in until Highland Creek got cleaned out. So just if we could get the information on what the options are, I'm assuming maybe there has to be a petition to put that back on the ballot. It probably won't pass, but at least I think we ought to look at it and give the people out there an option of what we can do for these things. Whether we set them up in separate ditch districts, I don't know the answer to that, and I just was wondering if maybe we could do that.
A couple things on this, and I'm sorry, Magistrate Southern, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been talking with Robbie Mills, and what with a lot of ditch problems is we run into landowners that will not let us have access to come in and clear ditches out. So you clear a ditch up to their property, and then you have an obstruction and it causes problems upstream. I'd like to see something go in the books on a state level, which if it's a major drainage, like in Henderson, we've got Elam Ditch, Highland Creek, Canoe Creek, Sellers Ditch. We have 5 major drainage systems. I would like to see it go in the book. If it's on the map as a drain, as a main drain, that it's a law that they can't obstruct us from cleaning those ditches. That's a big deal. It's a big process, but I have talked to someone and trying to get something moving.
Thank you, Magistrate Southern. I want to assure everybody that nobody forgot about Airline Road and the issues there. Within the last 2 years, because this problem goes back farther than just this past rain event, we were able to help convince one of the farmers who had levees along Airline Road to lower those, and those have helped reduce the number of days or the amount of events that flood Airline Road tremendously. And even during this last event, I went out to Airline Road every day to check on the water level, and even though there were periods when the water covered Airline Road, it was passable for emergency vehicles. That's one of the main considerations. But Elam Ditch did take quite a while to drain, and as Magistrate Southern pointed out and Charlie pointed out, there is a section of Elam Ditch from I-69 into the city limits that is overgrown, and the landowners there have not allowed the Flood Mitigation Board to even think about coming onto their land to clear that ditch, giving us the easements to do it. And as part of the cut-through project the Flood Mitigation Board is overseeing, that's trying to relieve some of the flooding along where Canoe Creek begins and goes under Old Madisonville Road. A lot of that work can be foiled if we don't have a coinciding clean out of that section of Elam Ditch that is overgrown at the moment. And that was one of the main culprits in backing up Elam Ditch for so long. So I've been in conversations with both Buzzy Newman and Magistrate Southern and Scott Keach, who farms in various places in the county that were impacted, as well as Billy Ray, farmer Billy Ray, who was impacted by that, to figure out what the county can do to help alleviate this situation. Because again, it didn't start with this most recent rain. It's been a challenge for a long time. Pond Creek is another good example, and I know Magistrate Southern's worked hard on that. I just want to give everybody a heads up and maybe get your permission to work with Frank Williams, who's the hydrological engineer, working with the Flood Mitigation Board, to give us a price for developing a long-term, all-encompassing strategy for cleaning out as best we can the drainage ditch system that Magistrate Southern described, to see if that would help and what the county can do to make that happen, even if it takes quite some time. And also to think about ways to help divert water coming from the county into the Canoe Creek system, which is another challenge. So much water coming into Canoe Creek, which begins to wind and bend and narrow as it gets towards the Ohio River is also part of our challenge. And to think about a way we can circumvent Canoe Creek and how much that might cost. So describing that, is that acceptable to each of you, that I begin to explore that with Frank Williams?
I would like for you to do that, Brad, and I do. But a couple of things. I still don't think that takes us out of the realm. If we could get a report from the county attorney telling us what financial options we have, you know, so we may be able to do this in the long run. 30 years ago, it was going to cost, there was a talk about putting a cut throughs there where Dr. Morgan's, Leif Nicholson's office was over to the creek, over to the river. And then there was also at Adams Street, right by PB&S Chemical, all the way and coming out into the parking lot of the hospital. The price was about $23 million at that time. I actually think the price on those things has come down because of the use of the new tunneling technology they used when they went underneath the channel over in England. And there's a company, I think, in Ohio that does this and will come around. If you could get them in the right time, not have to get in a hurry about it. But you got to have some long-term financing to pay for something like that. I think you're exactly right. But I would like to see what our options are from a financial standpoint. Taxes, what do we have to do? How did Union County do it, and what can we do to emulate what they did? Does that make any sense at all?
Magistrate McCollum, our office has done a good amount of that work already in a general sense, not necessarily with regard to any particular ditch. We've done a couple of memos with regard to the interplay between the ditch commission and the flood mitigation board, and trying to help figure out what is the most efficient way on those things. Of course, when you're talking about a ditch commission or creating a new ditch district, that increases the taxes for the individuals adjoining that particular ditch, and takes a vote and consent of those individuals along there. I can email you some of the research that we've done on that, and Assistant County Attorney Lawson Lambert has become our in-house ditch expert. So we can all three get together and sit down and talk about that if you'd like. There's several different things out there. Most of those laws were written in the 19-teens and 20s.
Yes.
And they're in some ways helpful, but in other ways quite antiquated for the way today's financing of public projects works. But we'd be glad to sit down and talk about that. I can forward you some of what we've already done on that.
It probably would be good, Steve. I think since most of us are new, if you could send it to all the magistrates so we could sort of get on the same page.
Yes, I'd like to know about it too. I get lots of calls about that.
lot of questions about it, and the longer a ditch district or ditch commission hangs around, the more problems there become, particularly with divisions of land. We've got some places around the county, it's my understanding, that as large farms have been subdivided, that and don't want to lay blame anywhere, whether it's PVA or somewhere, some of those ditch bills haven't always gone with both pieces of the land. Sometimes they just go with one landowner and not another. So we have a few situations, my understanding, that not everybody along that ditch may be paying in the same manner. So the longer something like that sticks around, the more problems there can become. Those laws are intended generally for finite projects, but also for maintenance of the project. So really those ditch districts that are existing now are for cleanouts that happened, in the maybe 40s and 50s, things like that, and sometimes even earlier, sometimes back to the 30s, from some of the minutes that we've been able to find and read. So there's some issues and concerns about that the longer something goes on, and that versus approaching it in a city county basis, looking at the flood mitigation board, that might be a more efficient way to do something like that. But that's something I can get with everybody and lay out. Like I say, we've got a couple of memos I think that I can forward to everybody.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Hey, Steve,
Yes, sir.
you talked about the ditch laws. If, you know, if a piece of property touches, I guess the thing that I'm asking is, just because my property don't touch that ditch doesn't mean I don't benefit from that ditch. And I think are antiquated. It's antiquated. Everyone in this county depends on those ditch training, whether they believe it or not. They do.
Well, Tim, that's the problem. Is I live on a hill, but my water's got to go somewhere.
Exactly.
And it goes on my neighbors, like it or not. And I should have to pay something for that, just like not just the person next to the ditch. But that's just my personal philosophy.
I agree.
So, but anyway, but you're exactly right. And I apologize. I mean, this brings up another thing that we talked about before, and I've not been able to do anything much more about it. I did copy all the indexes up to 1978, but the right-of-ways, as Tim found out about Pond Creek, we have some right-of-ways. We just don't know. We just don't have them on the GIS map yet. And I was going to work with Brian Bishop and try to get some of this right-of-ways done. And with the COVID, I just haven't been able to get back. But we've got it's our property, and the county had done this back in 1972 when David Thomason was county attorney, and had right-of-ways for Canoe Creek. And then in the 2000s, we went back and got new easements. We didn't have to do that. If we just kept track of what we had, we could have saved a lot of money, could have saved a lot of time, and we need to get these things put on the GIS map. So I'm just, if we have to hire somebody to help do some of that, I'm for it, because I think it's important to know what your assets are, what your property is, and we don't know where our roads are, what right-of-ways, how wide they are. Same thing for the
David,
I'm sorry. That's 5 things I brought up, and I apologize. Everything else is good in the 5th. Thank you.
Are you sure, Charlie?
Hey, my roads are taken care of. I've got really good Wi-Fi. You know, I live on a hill. I think I'm in pretty good shape.
Judge,
unless anybody wants to go out to help me cut grass this afternoon and spray.
No.
Judge, speaking of Wi-Fi, I've noticed that our Facebook feed is interrupted, and our notice to the public says that we will stop the meeting if the feed is interrupted until such time as it is restored. I don't know if Mr. Wiesen, I know a lot of times he's checking that as well. I don't know if it is working for him or not, but it appears to be stalled on Facebook. And like I said, legally we tell the public we will stop it until such time as it's restored. And
just don't tell Beth. Oh, there's Beth.
Don't start. Don't start.
Mr. Wiesen or Mr. Jacobs, can you tell whether we're back up again?
Mine looks like it's on, but
mine says it's on, but I don't know. I'm not on Facebook.
I just went to Facebook. So I'm looking.
Yeah, same here. I'm trying to see if it's on Facebook right now.
Yeah, what I'm getting is it will do about a second and then restart again.
It is still live, just in case anybody.
Yeah, it's on right now.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah.
Okay, Master Moran, Gooding County. You're on mute, Beth.
I have someone working at my house, so I hear noises in the background. I agree with the things about the ditch. We definitely need to do something about that. I've had a lot of calls about that, and it definitely needs to be worked on. I would like to thank Bill Hubiak and the road department. They have been, every time I drive out, they're filling a ditch with rocks or digging out ditches. They work so hard, and I really appreciate all that they've done for District 2. And other than that, everything's well in District 2.
Master Southern.
Yes, I'd like to say a thank you to Crystal Childers, which is with the Audubon Area Community Service. She got some produce and called me called me on a Thursday and said I need a fork truck to unload the truck on Monday. And I told her, I said, well, the most resourceful guy I know in the county would be Bill Hubiak. So call him. Call Bill. And go off without a flaw. And my hat's off to all of them, because that took fast work and some good coordination, and it makes our county look really good. I appreciate it very much. The county road department has been working on a riverbank for me down right on the edge of Union County. We have a 2-mile stretch. We've got some excellent employees. They see a problem, they stop, they fix it. They don't just drive by it and turn their head and look the other way. They make me proud. They really do. They make my job easy when they do their job. So thanks to them. And other than that, I think all's good in the third.
Thank you. Master Putman?
No, thank you, Judge. Just before I forget it, we had a flooding over on Sanford Drive, which is not too far from me, over there in the Rolling Hill subdivision, from where it's kind of all the mud's washing off from where they're building the street school. It was quite a mess. It was during that torrential 7-inch rain we had, and the drainage just wasn't. It was backing up, and it flooded that Sanford Drive. Get to the point, and I was looking for the email I got, but I just wanted to say thank you to Mike Waller and Steve Steiner and some of the other volunteers that actually came out there and took their time with dump trucks and to clean this up, and to the Henderson City Fire Department for coming down and working till dark to wash all that stuff down. So hats off to those guys. They've done a tremendous job. That was one of those odd storms, where, of course, and all that mud just kind of run out in the street. But to those guys. And everything else, Judge, I'd say in the fourth is going pretty good. Again, I would encourage people to wear a mask, be safe. And the last question I would have would be, are we going to continue with the Zoom meetings this month? Or is it still kind of up in the air?
You need to ask your grandson.
Yeah.
I would say for everyone's safety and considering what's happening right now, I would say we will have a Zoom meeting as our next fiscal meeting.
Okay. Just, and all that, it's all well, Judge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Butch. And I'd say we're really beginning to get the hang of this Zoom thing. We don't talk over each other as much as we used to. And we get more viewers of fiscal court meetings doing it this way probably than we ever had when we were in person. So I like that.
I was just watching when we asked. I typically don't watch, but when we said we were on, I'm saying that all this list of all these comments, might want to take note and see which ones we need to address. So,
Master Perry.
All right, thank you, Judge. I want to thank Charlie and Tim for all the input and stuff they did or had on the ditches. I talked to Scott Teach as well, and I don't have anything to add. I think y'all covered all the issues. I know there's a lot of them. I didn't have much. I happened to be gone during all the bad weather, but I had a couple of calls on water, and I will commend Bill Hubiak. I called Bill, and he got out there and took care of it. I even had the people call back and told me how much they appreciated him coming out. What a good job he done. So he helped me tremendously. I also would thank all the department heads and all their employees for the jobs they do during this whole year. I mean, everybody's just been great. And I want to thank you too, Judge, for your help up on Green River Road. That's taken care of, I think. We talked about it this morning, and I really do appreciate that. So with that, I think we're in pretty good shape in District 1.
Thank you. And Mr. Gold?
Judge, things are good in the county attorney's office. As we've talked about, very different from usual, but things are still moving forward. We're still getting a whole lot of work done for the county. And so I'm very proud of our team and the way they're able to still stay mission focused and get the public taken care of and attend courts virtually and everything that needs to be done. So just proud to be part of this team with Fiscal Court and the magistrates, and proud to be your county attorney.
Thank you, Steve. And I agree. There's not a single department in county government that hasn't been impacted by COVID. Scrambling schedules, scrambling work details, dealing with the public who are all, still, I think, confused and concerned about all this. And I think that our county team has done a tremendous job trying to continue to provide the service, assuring people that we're going to be here for them when they need us, and making sure we do our job. So I really compliment our team as well, and I'm glad you all are seeing the benefit of the quality of our people. So a couple things. I want to thank Charlie Ransom, our maintenance director, who has cajoled the administrative office of the courts to release $148,000+ to replace a chiller unit on top of the judicial center that is going out. Of all the times of the year when that was going to happen, this is the worst. And we impressed upon AOC, which is under tight budget like all other state agencies, that this was truly an emergency and that we had to get this unit replaced. And it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks to get it in. We're going to limp along with the chiller unit as it is now. Shekel has done an excellent job patching and band-aiding that to hopefully get us through the end of July and into August before we replace that. But saving the county $148,000 to replace that unit was great work by Charlie Ransom. Really appreciate his efforts. He's developed a very close relationship with AOC because we've been calling them a lot. And we're trying to try to make the judicial center as functional as possible before we take complete ownership in 2026. So this chiller unit will last us for a long time. On that same tack, we have a lot of challenges here at our courthouse, especially in HVAC and plumbing. I don't know whether you can hear it, but my office is now a construction zone because of some air conditioning problems. As many of you know, the piping and plumbing in this building is bordering now on ancient. It's wrapped in asbestos. And I have asked J.E. Shekel to make us a price for fixing all the HVAC piping here. And it, as a long-term project, amounts to $245,000. I'm going to be working with them to see what our options are about doing this over the course of time. It really is something we need to do. It's either now or later when it's an emergency, and we need to be proactive about this. Many offices inside this building have experienced the downside of the age of our systems, plumbing especially in Mr. Gold's office, and the HVAC and asbestos issue in Sheriff Brady's office, and air conditioning units in the fiscal courtroom. And it's just the time in this building's life when these things are going to have to get done. And I'll be reporting back to the fiscal court about what that looks like for us. Again, it can be a multi-year project, but we're going to have to get it done. Ohio Drive is progressing. We are on schedule to complete that on time in October and on budget. In addition to all the projects that all the magistrates have mentioned about what the road department is doing out in the county, they've also continued to do Ohio Drive, which is quite a partnership with the city to do this ourselves and save us the expense. And we are going to come in on time and on budget, which is terrific. And it'll make a huge improvement on Ohio Drive for all the thousands of employees who work there and the dozens of businesses, heavy industry that borders Ohio Drive as well. So that was really good to see them report to both EDA and GRAD about the progress of that project. Finally, I'm working with Kenny Garrett to closely follow expenses related to COVID for our county government. We're going to have more than $1.4 million available to us as reimbursements for our costs. This is through the CARES Act, and we're going to try to take advantage of every single penny that we can to reimburse the county for our costs related to our COVID response. And we may make a couple different applications for reimbursements. And Mr. Garrett is doing a good job of coordinating the record keeping and helping everybody understand what's eligible for this reimbursement. So thank you, Kenny. And that is all I have. Thank you, everybody, for your patience with these Zoom meetings. It's, I think, still necessary, and I think it's something we will, again, do next meeting, and then we'll just reevaluate after that. So nobody else has anything? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Master Puppet, second by Master Cullum, and all of those in favor can sign on. Sayonara.
Have a good day.
Have a good
everybody.
day, everyone. Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.